Good morning. Today you're going to experience the fireside poets. So these are poets from the Romantic tradition, so Romanticism that we talked about on Tuesday. And today you're going to read three of those fireside poets. The first one is Oliver Wendell Holmes. So he is typically a very lighthearted and witty, kind of playing on words type poet. He's usually a lot of fun. On page 205, you're going to find his poem, Old Ironsides. Make sure that you read the little descriptive paragraph above the poem because it kind of explains the why of the poem a little bit for you and just kind of sets the scene so that you'll understand it. You might need to look up a few things. Sorry, I'm moving my computer. There, that's better. You might need to look up a few words, that kind of thing, if you're not somebody who knows much about boats and sailing. But basically, Old Ironsides, I'm not going to tell you. You have to read the paragraph because it'll help you understand it. Okay? Then you're going to, and there's a worksheet attached to this so that you know exactly what you're doing. But the next one that you're going to read is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And again, these are names that you need to be aware of. These are the names that you're going to hear thrown around when people talk about American literature. So Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, he is on page 210 if you want to read more about him. There's a couple of his poems there. They give you Hymn to the Night. They give you The Arsenal at Springfield, The Tide Rises, The Tide Falls, and Nature. That's not the poem that I have ready for you. So you will find another poem of his called Psalm of Life. And that's the one that you're going to read, you're going to study, answer some questions for. I will type it up for you and put it on your note sheet, your homework paper. Well, rough today. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is known best for, he wrote a poem called Song of Hiawatha and also a poem called Paul Revere's Ride. So those may be some titles that you recognize as well. And if you wanted to read those, you can always go to Google, type in those titles, and you'll be able to find those poems. Okay? The third poet that I'm going to have you read today is John Greenleaf Whittier. I like him a lot because he is kind of more down to earth. Maybe he's kind of like my people. He is a New England farmer, rural family life. His poems, I think, are great for today because they recall a simpler time of life, earlier in history, a simpler time. And I think we can kind of relate to that right now. With COVID, we're all living simpler lives, slower lives. You guys have time to rest. You have time to do other activities. You're not running from 8 hours of school straight to practice or to a game and not getting home until 10 o'clock at night and then having all your homework to do and all the other obligations of life. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. So you've got that time to just slow down, to rest, to play games with your families, to do puzzles. I've heard a lot of you that are doing crafts and making things, possibly even reading. It's just people are finding time to live and to enjoy living and being with their family members for the most part. Okay, so I think that you can kind of relate a little bit to John Greenleaf Whittier. He, excuse me, he has a poem called Snowbound, and you're going to read a little excerpt from that. So it says in your book on page 217, from Snowbound. That means you're not reading the whole thing. If you're one of those people that you're like, I want to know the rest of it, which I'm sure you all are. Again, you can Google it, and I'm sure you can find the entirety of Snowbound. So your questions will be on the sheet of paper that I'll be attaching to this. let's see, what else did I want to tell you? John Greenleaf Whittier, I told you he was the rural poet. The other ones are real intellectuals. They've studied, they've traveled, they've done things. They're the fireside poets because this is what people did in this time period. They sat around the fire and they read to their families. So all of the stuff that we've been reading, picture that dad is sitting there and he is reading this out of a newspaper, because that's where this stuff would have been published for the most part, and it's a family activity. And people really liked these three poets because it was stuff that was family oriented. It was stuff that wasn't difficult to understand for them, because they were used to this kind of language. And it was stuff that they could read with their families as they sat around the fire. Maybe, Poe does not fit into that. Poe is not a fireside poet. You didn't want to read his stuff to your kids, your littles. But these poets, it was stuff that you could read with your family, you could talk about, you could discuss. So they were called the fireside poets. Okay? So that's it from me today. Reminder to you that you are supposed to check in with me on Google Meet tomorrow between 8 and 12. I will see you then. And this is your assignment. I'm going to make this assignment due on Tuesday of next week. So this doesn't have to be done when you check in with me tomorrow, but you need to come and say hi to me. Okay? So sometime between 8 and 12, check into Google Meet. Talk to you later. Bye.